Andrea Berry, all the way at the end there, wave. I'm going to let her introduce all the other women on the panel, but Andrea is amazing. Obviously a seasoned professional in the industry. She's the EVP of Operations and Technology at NBC Universal, Telemundo, and Latin America. She hoofs it back and forth across the United States constantly. I never know when I'm going to have a Zoom with her and what time zone, but she always looks fantastic. So I don't know how she does that. That must be part of her requirement because she oversees facilities operations, technical operations, production, and post-production, in addition to providing local leadership to their globally aligned engineering, IT, and security organizations. Her resume is so long that it would take way through dessert to read it to you, so I won't do that, but I do want to mention that she's a 2016 inductee to the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. She has received the Technology Leadership Award from Broadcasting and Cable magazine, and she's the recipient of four Technical Team Remote Emmy Awards, among many accolades. So without further ado, Andrea Berry and her superstar lineup for our joint lunch with GALSNGEAR and SVGW.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your lunch today. This is a cool panel that we've been preparing for with these three disruptors for a couple months now, and I'm so excited. I do want to recognize, first of all, hi to the guys in the room, but I am so proud that there's so many women here because I don't think when I started, we could have put this many women in the television community, especially in sports, in a room like this. And we've watched SVG grow, and I want to thank GALSNGEAR and SVG for putting this together today. It's amazing. Our intent is so that you can learn, so that you can see how some of us ladies have gone through the business and some of the things that we're talking about today. I do want to recognize a couple of folks in the audience that are here who are pioneers in women's sports, besides Patti. But we'll get to Patti in a second. But Pat Lowry, where are you? Hi, Pat. She was a producer and legend at ESPN and spearheaded a whole lot of women's sports and other sports. So I'm so glad to see you here. And if you guys didn't watch the Final Four a couple weeks ago, it was the most watched. Yeah. Not only did they have one of the most badass coaches, but also Caitlin and her team. Both teams were amazing, so I absolutely loved it. And then I see Mary Ellen Carlisle here. Hey, Mel. Another legend in the television industry with Dome Productions in Toronto. So these are folks that, I've come across all my adult life in television, so I just wanted to acknowledge them. But today we're going to talk about the future story, tech trends, and audience engagement. And as you guys know, if you have walked the floor at NAB, AI seemed to be the biggest thing going on right now, and it wasn't like that even 2 years ago. And so these ladies here who have very diverse disciplines as far as how we produce content and manage content, distribute content, they're huge in the industry. So first, I'm going to start with Barbara because she's here, but my notes don't indicate that. But Barbara Lange is the principal and CEO at Kibo 121? Kibo 121, yes. And it's a sustainability company, so she focuses on teaching us how to be sustainable. I'll ask this question as we get into it, but sustainability is where I work. Our goals are to be carbon neutral by 2030, so you guys need to think about that, especially the young people, because it's going to affect us for generations going forward. And then we've got Patti Fallick, another legend in television. She's a managing director of United States Tennis Association, USTA. And so when you watch tennis on the air, it's Patti's teams who are doing that. And then we've got Michelle Munson, who's the CEO and founder of Eluvio, which is an open high-performance utility blockchain network for content management. And she's also and content distribution, absolutely. And if you guys in broadcast operations, I see there's some of folks from when I was at Fox, some of the broadcast operations folks, you know about Aspera, so she's also the founder of Aspera. So I didn't even know a woman was the founder of Aspera, so give her a shout out too, you know?
Yeah.
But I want to start with why audience engagement? Why is it so important when we are talking about audience engagement? And it's not just about the ratings. I think we've gotten so sophisticated as viewers and fans that we want to feel as if we're a part of this show that we're airing. I know you guys binge and all that, but when it comes to live sports, you really want to feel as if you're a part of it. So I'm going to start off by asking Patti, why audience engagement?
Well, for us at the U.S. Open, that's key. We have 1 million people that show up on the grounds. We have to engage that audience. We have, I think it was something like 3 billion impressions on social media worldwide. We have to engage with that audience. The people that go to our app, to our website, we have to engage with them. We are seen in over 225 countries worldwide with 300 million people watching, and now I'm really scared for this year again. It's a lot. And you engage with those audiences in all different ways. You do it with some technology, because you've got to be up on the latest technology to engage the audience. You've got to make sure you're providing the best quality and the best content, and you've got to be storytelling with all your assets. And that's how you engage the audience. But it's on all those different platforms, all at the same time, but in very different ways.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, Michelle, what new technology and challenges are we having right now with audience engagement?
Well, I think it's really an opportunity, as Patti alluded to right now, because of the fact that data has entered a new era. And since there's so many young faces here, I'm sure every single one of you has played with Sora. Every single one of you has probably played with at least ChatGPT and maybe DALL-E, right? So in your generation, and by the way, this is a really important fact. 40 years ago, the internet became real. 40 years before that, electronic computer. We're at that 40-year point. Gen AI, with the way that data can describe and let's just say augment all types of experiences, in particular content experiences, it's a watershed moment. And what makes this so interesting technologically is that it calls for different solutions. And our company, the second company that I've started and built a brand new technology for, is approaching content distribution differently because of data in part. For one thing, in traditional solutions that have been used for broadcast, at least when you think of doing streaming, we've traditionally made media in a very bespoke kind of way with lots of versions up front and then distributed them. In this new way, we have the opportunity to have the data drive what the consumer sees. And in order to do that, you need very compositional strategies for that distribution. And my particular emphasis in my career has been in creating application level solutions as protocols to do that. And the content fabric is that. I think that we're seeing a point for all of you that are just really coming up in your careers, and it's so exciting to see all of you here, where it will be possible, for example, in very short order, to be able to present the audience with the opportunity to compose their own channel. Make a channel that tells me this or does this for me from these resources. And for the consumer, the idea, of course, is to not only personalize, but really take engagement to another level. And I think on the business side, I mean, the main idea is to address one of the biggest problems the industry has right now, which is just profitability.
That's a good point. And Barbara, on the sustainability side, where do we lead on with that?
Yeah. So what Michelle described is really also known as Industry 4.0, which is this concept of, the next industrial revolution is all about smart everything, sensors and AI, and the more data you have, the more personalized, the more better your life should become. But it does have a sustainability impact, and I think the challenge we have at the moment is to balance all of these tools and techniques and make sure that we can do them as sustainably as possible. And we have more data, so we know more. And I think it's an interesting time. I'm just curious if how many in the audience think that sustainability is one of the most important things for you in your life? Yeah.
Wow, this is more than the guys when we did the panel the other day. You know?
Yeah. Well, and that just is a demonstration of why it's so important now that we get the industry educated and really motivated to move around sustainability as kind of a foundational platform. So.
And so, Patti, how are you using the USTA as establishing sustainability practices in your content creation?
We're a sustainable facility, for one, for the US Open as much as we possibly can be, because we have 1 million people that show up. So you make sure that you're doing all the right things on the sustainability front. But I just want to go back for 1 second on the data side. It's using that data and understanding how to use that as a tool to showcase your property to your event, to go back to the audience engagement. I've had to learn in my field, how to handle level 2 data, level 3 data. Understanding that part of it, for us, it's our electronic line calling data. It's our chair umpire data, and using those tools to enhance your overall production and your broadcast, to engage with your audience, and that's really key. And I never thought in my career I would need to know this much about data.
Yeah.
I've had to really dig deep into it, and I really encourage everybody to you don't have to be an expert into it, but you have to understand it and understand what's available to you, and so that you can use it as a resource.
And Michelle, from when we're evaluating data and looking at data, how have we transformed as far as changing our workflows and the way we operate and the way we do business?
Yeah, I want to speak to sustainability on this front, because this is one of the most illustrative points of what Barbara's getting at. In media workflows of what I'll call legacy, most cases the data and the media are not together, and media is really big. So to get media to data so that you can act upon it, right? Do things like Patti's talking about, make it actionable in relation to what viewers are seeing. Most of that has traditionally involved a lot of use of infrastructure, bandwidth, compute, moving, right? Moving files. I know a lot about that because my first company specialized in that. And we're at a point now, a critical point, where the opportunity is so big and the data plus media is so massive that continuing to work that way is not only not sustainable, it also costs way too much. And this is where the innovation opportunity comes into play. And one of the things that motivated me to work in the direction we've gone with the content fabric is knowing, and I didn't realize, like anybody, that Gen AI would do what it's done. But I thought, when I started working on this in 2018, that data would grow and it would become more part of this experience, and it has vastly outstripped what I anticipated. And I think the key thought on this is that the media and the metadata need to work together in our case, in the distribution process, but through the entire workflow. And this is causing us to, make entirely new solutions and rethink how a lot of things have been done in the past. The good news for on Barbara's points is that it's also inherently much more sustainable.
So you use the term content fabric, and I'm going to go back to you, and then I'll probably hit you, Barbara. Explain in layman's terms, because I'm sure nobody has heard about the content fabric concept. Explain in layman's terms, Michelle, what that means.
Well, it's actually simple in terms of what it is. It's an end-to-end protocol. If you ever looked at the internet's built on two foundational protocols, TCP and IP. And typically, we build our media applications through a bunch of workflows that sit right on top of those. The fabric as a protocol sits between the media application and those. And it has many functions in protocol that we typically stretch apart. And the way that it's built allows us to have content processing and composable distribution in the network. So that has a lot of benefits in the ways that we're talking about. First of all, most importantly, using many fewer resources, much more efficient. But it also allows for high latency or low latency performance and removing high latencies, and not high latency, the opposite of that. And it has the most important benefit, I think, to all of this is that it allows for the data to drive what the consumer sees. And I know this is all very technical, but the way media works, it's so profound to the internet that there are points in time where big changes are called for. And one of the things I've enjoyed doing, and I hope we get to talk in this conversation about being who we are in our careers, is having the opportunity to really innovate new things that can make a big difference. And I hope that you get to do those sorts of things in your career. It's certainly what keeps me going.
Yeah, definitely. And on the on that content fabric process, how is sustainability tied in with all of these new the new technology that Michelle is talking about, as well as AI, generative AI? How are you teaching broadcasters to be more sustainable when it comes to that?
Well, the first step is education, and learning that the industry is still very at the beginning of the sustainability journey. There are some organizations who are further along than others, but most don't fully understand what does it mean to be sustainable in the media sector. Fundamentally, it's about efficiency gains, and things that Michelle are doing are innovative and very forward-looking, and if they are efficient, which means fewer processes, smaller footprints, physical footprints, more efficiency gains, then you're going to be sustainable without even thinking about it. So that's a great message. But once you do think about it, you can find sustainability gains in lots of different areas. And so what I do is help uncover those areas for the media tech sector. So it doesn't have to be super complicated, but you need to have that mindset. It needs to be part of your daily thinking and planning and strategy that you're thinking about sustainability and efficiency gains.
Yeah, I think the footprint is really key to minimize it. I mean, for us, we've worked really hard to keep on every year making our footprint and resources on site, on-prem, less and less, and going more to the cloud for that reason.
Right, and the other thing too is moving to EVs, right? I mean, there are things in better power generation, battery technology, and there is innovation happening in all of these regards as well, so that you can have fewer OB trucks, and there are EVs, and using battery technology that is good for the environment, and there is a technology out there that people can begin adopting. They just need to be made aware of it and see the differences and, begin making those steps.
Yeah, I know at Telemundo, we not only do sports, but we do scripted programming, all the novelas, for any of you who are really familiar with that. And we produce those in Miami and in Latin America, but we found that editing in the cloud, you mentioned the cloud, so I gotta bring it up. We're doing a lot of editing in the cloud. It has saved us a lot of money. It also allows us to use talent all over the world at any time zone or anything. So the efficiencies that come out of that are incredible. But Patti, I wanted to know, you mentioned cloud. What kind of use cases are you using now at USTA that have allowed you guys to move forward in your content creation with implementing the cloud sourcing?
Not as much as I would like to, candidly. There's still a lot of, the mindset is still the traditional resources, and we were encouraging people, because we don't want to have the footprint of everybody on site. That's been the way before. COVID taught us that we did not all need to be there anymore, and there was ways for people to work remotely through the cloud, that they did not need to be on site, and that's been the game changer, and we've been using that as a stepping stone to do more and more like that. We're going more towards the cloud. We're also starting to have conversations about AI technology that can eliminate having, to your point, everybody on site. Commentators could be anywhere in the world, or AI commentators, which is, ooh. I have a lot of talent that work for me that probably are not going to be happy with this conversation. But no, we love our commentators, and I think that, announcers for tennis, I mean, they're unique, they're experts, but where we are going to go towards using AI is in the 225 countries and multiple languages. If I can take that same highlight that a commentator voices over on site and automatically, using AI, translate that into all the different languages for all of our broadcast partners, that's a game changer.
By the way, we're involved in doing exactly this kind of a workflow with the Euro 2024 this summer. We're providing the live streaming service for the broadcast commentators, and those audio tracks are then converted with speech to text to other
Very
languages.
efficient. So sustainable.
And it's also, but it's also a game changer,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we would
sure.
never be able to do that.
Flexible,
You'd never be able to hire that many different, translators to do that many different languages and to distribute it seamlessly without, having to use our traditional methods.
Yeah, and repurposing that content. I think every person in this room who is part of a network knows that the repurposing of content is key now. And, I just want to, I know that we wanted to make this kind of more interactive, so if you guys have any questions, raise your hand. I think someone will roam around with a microphone and be able to take some questions. So feel free to raise your hands, because we really want to hear the crowd. There's a very, very, you guys have a lot of different skill sets in here, and so we want to make sure that we're tapping into some of the questions that you may have for any of the ladies on this panel. So does anybody have any questions yet? Because we'll keep going. Oh, you do? This lady over here, Ken.
I was just thinking, is a cloud really more sustainable? You can have a server on your premises, or you can have a server on their premises. Is it more efficient?
It depends. I think, and every environment is different. Data centers are getting more and more efficient. They're better than they used to be, but it's a little bit debatable whether the cloud is super sustainable. But if you take out the notion of travel and, the flexibility of having staff wherever they can do their work, then absolutely it is sustainable.
I would also just add that I think the real issue is in what's being done on top of the cloud.
Yeah.
Right? We tend to think of the cloud as that sort of nebulous infrastructure where everything happens external to where we actually are. And when you get into the details of it, there are much better and much worse ways to do something like that. And without going to all the weeds, I mean, the very point of the fabric is to imagine a decentralized environment that is fully cloud-based, that is content native, built to be maximally efficient for infinite reuse of the same content. That's totally different in resource usage than these traditional cloud kind of workflows that we have seen for the last 15 years.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody has a question? Okay, we'll keep, no? Okay, we'll keep going. So there's one in the back? Oh, this lady back here. Ken, we just voluntold you to be the mic guy.
Love it.
Thank you, Ken. On technologies and the post-production world, technologies, a little nervous there, sorry. We were focusing on difficulties in the technology with AI. Can you speak a little bit about that? The struggles that you face, like the difficulties and technologies and the struggles that you face with AI. Yes, ma'am.
AI.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
Apologize for that.
I think it's important to make sure it's authentic, how you use it. For us, where we're looking at doing commentary in AI, it's not only translating into the local languages, but making sure you're doing it correctly and you're using the local nuances of language, and the phrases are correct in that territory. So it's really taking it to the next level. It's not just doing a simple basic translation, but making sure it's totally accurate. Sorry.
I wanted to add a slightly different direction because it's becoming quite an active area across the industry, which is in content provenance. And that's really this idea that you know the source and the ownership chain through the whole lifetime of media. Why? Foremost, because of so many creation of derivatives, deepfakes. And there is a lot of work happening across media companies right now to harness new approaches. And part of the reason we're involved in this is because of the a different and capable way, in this case with Fabric, to be able to certify each version as being owner-controlled and being in each version of the content as being tamper-proof in the way that you can see it and you can also validate it all the way to the consumer. And I think that whole area is going to be explosive because, first of all, we want to use AI to create more derivatives. It's a huge opportunity to market and license to AIs, but at the same time, it's also blown open this whole hole for premium content because unless the consumer has a way to know the difference between real and fake, you can't keep that premium value. And this is very important in news. I would imagine it will be in sports as well. So that's another area.
Yeah, for maintaining the broadcast rights value, that's going to be key to figure that part out, for sure.
One thing I do want to mention, for those of you who are doing your own research on AI tools, be very careful of the tools that you allow in your operation, okay? Because there are legal implications that may be very subtle that can burn you in the end. So I know that when we are trying to institute AI tools, they go through a serious scrub with our legal department as well as our cybersecurity groups and all that. So you have to make sure that prior to you putting tools online to all the points here, make sure that you've done that strong scrub of the AI tools because there's a whole lot of stuff out there. You're seeing it on the floor right now. Not to say that anything on the floor is not legitimate, but there are some smaller companies who are not legitimate. Jerry, you're laughing at me. That are not legitimate, or they may affect your overall operation. So be very careful. There's a lot of legal implications on that. There's another lady that has a question.
So the early creators of social media have said that AI is dangerous, and they had no clue that their brainchilds, if you will, Facebook, were going to be used in the manner that they're being used today. Do you worry that the products you're creating and or a part of are also going to be used for, bad purposes?
That's a good question. You want to answer that, Michelle?
Well, I'll do my best to say a few things that matter to me or come to mind. First of all, and all of you here work in technology directly or indirectly, there is always this profound gap between the innovation opportunity, what you create, and what people do with it. You all saw Oppenheimer, one of the most watched movies of the year, right? Imagine being those scientists, right? And so I would say make your leap to right now. I mean, the folks working in generative AI and its direct applications of it have exactly the same worries, of course, right? I would say backing that off another step to specifically what goes on in premium media in relation to social. I think that one of the great things about premium media has concentration of audience. So you can, if you do a really good job, you can also do a really good job for a lot of people. The corollary to that is that the internet rolls over everybody. And I think that the challenge the industry faces is that what the industry does has to work in today's internet. And that's where this profound situation of social media that has shaped most of your generations, because you're a lot younger than us sitting up here, that's where all the hard problems are. There's also tremendous opportunity.
And I think it's important that you always use your brain. The brain is so important in all of this, and it's exactly what Michelle says. I mean, we can use these technologies for good purposes, and you just need to use your brain too. Don't give in to not thinking also about these issues and making good decisions too.
Yeah. Jerry, you have a question?
Yeah, a question and sort of a statement. In terms of social media being used for bad things, I've been around a while, and I was told when I was a kid that rock and roll music was going to fry my brain, and that Tipper Gore went and had Frank Zappa banned from the radio. You know, so it's so I to me, you know, Facebook or that TikTok is a threat to America is a bit of a stretch to me. And the other thing, I mean, I've heard conversations about the cloud ever since I showed up here in Las Vegas. Cloud. What nobody talks about is, in a sustainability sense, what it actually costs in terms of power and air conditioning to run the huge data centers. It's, you know, in terms of the money, it could, you know, if somebody ever crunches the numbers, it could be a push. You know, because I know this guy who's in a real estate business, and that's his business, data centers. And between the air conditioning and the power consumption in running those server farms, it's huge. And the other thing that hasn't been addressed, or I haven't heard a lot of it here when it comes to the cloud, is cybersecurity. You know?
I just have to speak up because the whole reason that we made our company is to address the 2 points that you said. The first is that the architecture of the cloud makes those resources, those data centers, much bigger than they have to be and much more resource consuming than they have to be to get the job done. So much so that the argument is we need to do it differently. The whole point, and I appreciate the question so much, of thinking about the stack that's generating the media throughout its life cycle, for that being so important, is because the way that it has been advocated to be done through microservice workflows is incredibly inefficient and is a total waste of resources. Point 2, the content security. That's the other problem. That public cloud isn't public. It's a trust point with the company who makes the public cloud. The content itself is not owned in that infrastructure by the publisher. And there are better ways through owner-controlled content security to implement so that the content is protected independent of the infrastructure. Those are the 2 points of the content fabric. Now you understand what it is.
You go, girl.
That was the right question.
And I would also say that, you know, innovation is the key to all of this so that we can do things differently and better. And part of it is not having the full transparency to understand really the true energy costs of some of these technologies. And there are groups that are looking at it, but it's still very nebulous and very cloudy. And so, you know, one of the things that I'm hoping to do as a little bit of a movement is to really elevate the transparency of these things so that we can have real data and we can have data that we can all agree on, measurements and data that we can all agree on. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, and the worst thing you want is, to Jerry's point, the worst thing you want is to stop that innovation because somebody believes that the light bill is too high or the space that we're using is too expensive. And so we really have to do our due diligence. And the cybersecurity piece is huge. And like I mentioned, for AI, you also have to use it for your cloud applications as well. Anybody have any other questions? Oh, my goodness. Back there and here, too. We've got...
I'll go here first.
Making Ken work.
I know, right?
Hi, I just had a question on, because you brought up a point about repurposing data and AI. So how do you see those two components lifting women's voices and storytelling?
That's a good question. We're still working, trying to figure that out. Honestly, every day we're meeting. You know, in the past it would have been us just meeting with our production teams. Now we're meeting with our IP teams, our engineering teams, our CTOs, our tournament ops, everybody that the data touches, and it's many different areas at our organization, trying to figure out how do we take that data and then implement it across all the different use cases, whether it be cloud, the traditional broadcast, or how we're going to use it. We're always changing, and we're sometimes not agreeing on how it's going to be used.
Good question. Oh, we have another question. Sorry.
Hi. I had a question around data collection, and we talked about customization. The flip side of that is user privacy. What steps are you seeing of the industry taking to protect user privacy in those type of scenarios?
I can definitely say a little bit about that. So there's another misnomer, or I think maybe just misunderstanding and opportunities for personalizing without actually taking the identity of the person. So identity is what identifies you individually. Personalization just makes what comes out meaningful to you without necessarily, if done the right way, having to know about who you are. And again, I'm involved in through the fabric and all of the way that it works. It's effectively privacy preserving because of the security model of it, which uses both blockchain cryptography and also identity that is separated from PII. And in fact, you can have a pinpoint personalized experience stream by stream to the end user that doesn't collect any PII whatsoever if you wish. I think one of the points, and this is what I think really gets to the scale of what Patti's talking about, is you have to have gradations of this to be practical, right? But we're at a point now where it is very possible to build solutions where the user, it's completely transparent to the user what, if anything, about them is, and their identity is part of that user context. And then beyond that, giving them some degree of choice about that. Finally, data custodians. One of the big problems for media publishers, major brands, sports rights holders, is that with the way that streaming distribution has largely been done, there's giant intermediaries that keep all that data. They're the ones putting all the money in with the IP, and they don't get back the engagement data, which has held back so much of the monetization. And this is another problem with that's a second order problem, derivative of the other things we've been talking about, that now innovation can start to get around, because direct distribution solutions allow for the engagement data to come back to the publisher. And that's a direct relationship between the consumer and them. Big deal.
And you need that data to do the personalization, because you can't, without that data, you can't personalize for your audience.
And that's also the efficient way to do it.
Don't get them started, y'all.
There's a lot of technical questions. I'm curious if anybody has questions for some of these legends, like the person sitting next to me, on how she became that.
Well, that was one of the things that we wanted to get in, because there's a lot of young ladies in here. She has a question. Go ahead.
Hi. My question is sort of around AI, but more so in career upskilling and the gaps that might create for us in the future. Just what are your concerns around that from a talent perspective, funneling in talent, keeping talent? I know it's a cost reduction measure, allowing people to work from anywhere. It's also a great opportunity to get to come to these places and be on site and network and meet people. So just wondering your concerns around AI from a career development perspective and how you're addressing those.
Wow, who wants to take that?
I'll take a little bit of that. I think that's a huge gap for us right now in the broadcast industry. There are not enough people that understand AI or data or technology. They think of themselves only as production people and don't realize that everything has now converged, and you need to be as strong in the technology side as you do in the production and broadcast side. And also ask questions. Read everything you can get your hands on. I probably read, something like 15, 20 different technology newsletters a day. I'm not an engineer, but I'm learning, and I know to ask a question if I don't understand something. And I'll go to what I call the smart people and ask them those questions. But unfortunately, there's not enough smart people coming into the broadcast side of the business to understand how to use all this technology.
Yeah, I really wanted to add to what Patti said about, first of all, the curiosity. I mean, if you're not already doing this, read every single thing you can get your hands on. I'm the same as Patti. That's the number one thing I do, is read what comes across my desk and try through my email, and also try to constantly look and play with things that are new out there. Now, the natural advantage many of you have, these tools are super fun, especially when you're pushing the boundaries of generative AI. So it's not a chore to get to learn this. It's a blast. And then on top of it, again, many of your generation, because there's a lot of young faces here, this is so natural. So just go immerse yourself in it, and then like Patti said, bring it into this space. I mean, the sky's the limit right now. It's, like I said, it's that 40-year point. And I have worked in the internet for over 20 years, and I'm telling you, these 40-year points are really, they are 40 years apart. So your careers are going to be defined by this.
And when I talk to young people, I say often sustainability should be part of your whatever you do, and same goes for AI and data science. I mean, data science as a philosophy almost is critically important. So I think those are the two areas that I would recommend you stay on top of, because you'll be able to navigate much better if you're aware of both of those.
And in the data science realm, I got you. In the data science realm, my alma mater, I serve as a trustee of my alma mater, the kids coming out of college who have like maybe computer science degrees and then they add it and get a master's in, we got some loud stuff going on out here. They get a master's in data science right after. You'd be surprised their salaries are incredible coming out to, you know, double six figures easily coming out of 22, 23 years old, making all kinds of money. Because that skill set is so much in demand.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable right now. I mean that, thank you, not
Yeah,
you.
I know.
No, I have the same thing. I'm on the board of Syracuse University Sport Management Program, and we have the only certified analytics program in sports in the country. And those students are getting job offers in their junior years.
Yeah,
and they are, to your point, Andrea, coming out with higher salaries, they're more widely skilled. And there's also a lot of the students that are in the traditional broadcast world, they want to be in production. They're also getting dual IT degrees. That's never happened before. Those students are, and that's the next generation that are going to move our industry forward.
I also want to talk about mid-career learning because people don't stay the same throughout their whole careers, and especially right now. So just a couple of examples of what, first of all, my best friend for my lifetime, woman, PhD in anthropology, did a master's in data science when she was about 43, 44 years old.
Cool.
And she changed her whole career on a dime. I mean, it took 2 hard years of work, but she now has a rich career in data science, and it's a whole new chapter of her life. Those kind of career moves are very possible. And on a lighter note, when I started this company, I took a course, literally, in machine learning myself. So I would know enough to be able, I'm trained in engineering, so I have the background, but I didn't know that. And that kind of continual learning, and sometimes you really have to pause what you're doing for a while and learn, and then start executing again. And I don't think, never be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many opportunities now. You can take online courses in AI. If you're not sure, just take a course. Learn a little bit more about it. Explore different avenues. It's going to give you a wider background to take into whatever area of the business you're in.
And I think I'm an example of that too, because 2 years ago I launched this new enterprise, and I didn't know much about the true nature of sustainability, certainly not in the media sector. And I've built a business around it, and I was not doing this 5 years ago. I was doing something completely different 5 years
That's
ago.
incredible.
So it's possible, and it's good, and it's very energizing, and it's very stimulating to see the changes that you can affect by doing that. So yeah, keep your minds open and learn, always learning. Never stop learning.
Yeah, there was a young lady who had a question in the back. Thank you, guys. That was good.
Thank you. You guys have mentioned continuing learning, and Patti, you said that multiple times a day you're reading articles. What resources are you guys using to stay ahead of the emerging technologies?
And I'm not just saying this because Ken's in the room, but SVG is a great resource because they aggregate a lot of industry articles together. Plus they have in-depth interviews with people that are using these technologies in the business. So that for me is a daily Bible. But there's so many other ones out there. I think you just have to kind of narrow down what your interests are and do a little homework, but it's sign up for them. You don't have to read everything. Sometimes I don't have time. Sometimes I'll see an article that sounds like something I could use technology-wise, and I need to learn a little bit more about it. So I'll bookmark it, save it, and then go back and ask somebody, hey, I read this article about, something they did at the Super Bowl. Can I learn more about it? Can you explain to me how you did it? We're using, Janelle was here before, I don't know if she's still in the room. There she is. I learned something from an article in SVG about a technology that was used at the Super Bowl that we're going to implement now at the US Open. It's from learning, and the thing that I've been doing this for, oh my God, 40 years now. And the thing that I love about it so much is it's constantly changing. I'm constantly learning. The business is constantly evolving. I'm never bored. And that's, I think, the exciting thing about this industry is.
I would add on that I spend a lot of time on webinars, free webinars, and they're amazing. And you know what? LinkedIn, I have expanded my sustainability network immensely through LinkedIn and webinars. And people want to they're passionate about the topic. They will take my emails, they will take my calls, and I learn from that. So yeah, you have to be proactively, also, you have to be as proactive as you are. Reading, of course, is very important, but you also have to reach out and find these people who are going to help you be better at what you want to do.
Yeah, the LinkedIn learning is free. So there's a lot of stuff that I see on LinkedIn.
I just wanted to add a couple more points on this. It's a rare opportunity to get to talk to people in this forum with folks like this. And a couple of confessions from me about what I actually do in this regard. And I really have these compartments that I use to gain information. I certainly, about the industry, I do read SVG just like Patti, because it's really good consolidation of what's going on, and that's how I learn about trends, because I have to make technology that fits these trends. Secondly, I have another habit which has served me very well, which is I take macro tech stuff as podcasts, macro level that I call it, and I listen to it when I work out. I run a lot, I do a lot of that kind of thing, and I always listen to use my time, and I love it because it's very interesting to me. Brain stimulating, and I try to follow areas I'm in. Now, I do one other thing which I think is very important, is I pick what I'm going to learn in depth, and then I really learn it. And I don't do multiple things at once in depth. I do one thing in depth at a time. And I think one thing that's missing in the way people have come to work with the modern, social and this like mass information flow is they fail to really learn. And again, my job is unique in that I'm working in certain areas to innovate fundamentally new things, and they have to be right, so certain things I must really, really know, or make sure I know how to evaluate if the person working for me really knows. But I do think this serves everybody well to be really good at certain things. And then you can move from thing to thing, but to go to some amount of depth. And when I study those things, I go to the actual source. I read a lot of research papers, and I also look at code, and I also test everything myself. And the last thing I was going to say about tech is you got to put your hands on it. I test everything myself. That's important.
Great advice, Michelle. Any other questions before we round up? There's a lady way in the back, Ken. You're getting your steps in.
Hi. So I work with the State Department, and I work in a team that uses live virtual production. So essentially, my question is about if you can talk a little bit about how live virtual production, as far as connecting with people globally, and people in different cultures globally, how that is changing the landscape of video production and media. My team works to connect people in the State Department, experts in the State Department, to our global partners, and especially to uplift women and girls in underserved countries. And essentially that involves making sure that we can connect with them in a way that's safe, and that they feel safe. So I know that may not apply to all of the things that you do, but if there's any way that you could frame that.
I'll take that one.
Talk about the virtual studio.
That's what I was just going to talk about. We started having a virtual studio on site at the US Open 4 years ago now. And it originally started because of COVID. I think a lot of things that we're doing now started then. It was a way to, we couldn't have all our global rights holders that previously would come on site with a big footprint come on site during COVID, but we still wanted to connect in all these different countries that we're partners with on the US Open. So we started the virtual studio. It surprised us how well it was received. The players loved it. They loved the opportunity to connect in their home countries with their home broadcasters and to reach other countries. We were surprised by how much it was used. The first year, I think we did over 400 different interviews in multiple countries, probably in 32 different countries. So we were able to expand our reach because of that virtual technology. And I think that was a game changer. And the players loved it because they could speak in their native language. When you're on site, the expectation is you're going to do the interviews in English, but being able to connect in their local countries with their local broadcast partners and be able to communicate in their local languages was a game changer for us.
Yeah.
It also did have an unexpected impact, a sustainable one. Less broadcasters came on site because we had this technology to offer up to them. So it was a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about COVID. I mean, and it led for us in the Telemundo Center. We have a virtual studio, very large virtual studio, and we're broadcasting live news every day, 6 days a week, using a virtual studio where the control rooms are in New York and the studios are in Miami. So if you guys are in Miami, I would love to tour you around to see that. But we're also we talk about training. Unreal Engine does an amazing job in training people who are interested in their technology, and that really seems to be the basis and the foundation of virtual productions right now. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. I see this lady here.
Yes, hi, good afternoon.
That was your musical intro.
Right. My name is Mary Kearney from Booming Your Face podcast, and I want to reach back and touch what you were saying about not being afraid to go back to educate yourself, because I started in finance, then I moved into law. Then after raising my family, I went back and got my master's in instructional design and technology to keep up with what's going on. So since we're women, thank you, of a certain demographic, in your companies, do y'all have, I guess, a workshop or initiative for women to go back and train, become current?
Good question. Maybe we need to start one.
So it's so
I'll be
easy
willing
to
to help
talk
you.
on these things and
The question is any of the companies doing initiatives for women of a certain demographic to go back and train and come current in technology, because that is a different dynamic going on now than prior. And I was saying I'm not going to get left behind, and I just took the initiative to do it myself. But if companies, I'm sure some of your coworkers and some of your people would love that opportunity.
Great question. Yeah, go ahead.
But all I was going to say is it's much easier in the position as a startup company because you're small and you have flexibility. And in bigger companies, you need full programs, and it's logistically, I'm sure, much more challenging. Also, being small, they're never formal. But one thing I have always tried to do, and there's several people in my team in this company that have done this, is to offer to people the opportunity to do continuous learning as part of their job. And that ranges across whatever skills they're trying to build, whether it's in software engineering or advanced user interface design or in something to do with, business. I happen to be in Berkeley. My company's headquartered in Berkeley, very close to UC Berkeley, and we've done a lot of stuff of that nature over time, not to mention now a lot of things are online. And I personally just believe in it. I think education is most of it, and so it's so much easier than in a larger environment, and I'd be interested to know, maybe does USTA have opportunities?
We do have a very extensive D&I program, but to your point, it's mostly for interns and people starting out. I think that's a miss. I think you just made me have some wheels turning here. Some things I'm going to talk to our folks back when we get back. We do have the continuing education program, and that's really encouraged. but I think that's a miss. I think also for women that, I have somebody on my staff that gave birth to 2 kids within 13 months. And you know what? We've worked with her to allow her to have the opportunities to do both. I think we have to, in general, be more flexible where our workforce comes from and how we allow for opportunities. And I really thank you for bringing that to our attention and making us all a little bit more aware that we need to be not just thinking about people starting out in the industry, but people transitioning from one role to another role. That was awesome.
I would add on, when we talk about sustainability, I would turn your attention to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, known as SDGs. There are 17 of them. And what it means is that all the people who sign on to the Paris Agreement and all this commit to things like equal access to education and gender equity, and it's not all about just the climate, but it's about, sustainability is about doing better for all people, for all humanity, really. So it's very important that people have the opportunities to be educated. And the thing is, there are organizations on the show floor who do care about those sorts of things. And when you're looking for a new job, you should look, find out if those companies that you're interested in, do they have an ESG statement? Do they not only have a statement but stand behind it? Do they not just environmental sustainability but also about causes for the community and the social impact? Because it's a changing world. People care more about where they work, not just for the dollars, but that they feel empowered and treated fairly and have those opportunities. So you also need to do the work to find those organizations, but they're there and they're great to work with, and you'll be successful there too.
So, I've learned a lot today. Have you? I just want to. We've got to wrap this up. I could sit and talk to all of them, and we mentioned this earlier. A few weeks ago. I could talk to them all day. Check out Michelle's company online, Eluvio. It's amazing. I went down a total rabbit hole when I went on your website, but 30 seconds each, right? You see all of these women, they've done well in their careers in their respective disciplines. They're fearless, okay? And I want to acknowledge the fact that they are also amazing role models. And so I want you guys, ladies, to give me 30 seconds each, words of wisdom. Okay, and I'm going to start because I know that sometimes as women and folks who are trying to get ahead, we always find obstacles and then we make excuses why we can't do what we want to do, right? And so my mantra has always been, do not take no for an answer, right? Always ask questions and don't take no for an answer. I've been doing it for a long time. And it works. So I want to go to you next.
Okay, that would have been mine too. But my next one is be curious, ever curious. And it goes along with don't take no for an answer. But really, be curious. Ask questions of people, and don't turn anyone away who's willing to talk to you, because you learn something from everyone. So be curious.
That's good, Patti.
Yeah, and I'll say, find a sponsor, find a mentor. They're different. I think that's important, and ultimately work hard, work harder, and treat everybody with respect. That's number one. When you're working in a large organization or a small organization, you're all in this together, and you have to treat everybody with respect. It's paramount. We don't have anybody on our team that doesn't, not everybody's very different, and we have a very large amount of people on the US Open team. That's our number one rule. Treat everybody with respect.
Yeah. And Michelle?
Be yourself. And I wanted to say something personal on that point. I heard the previous panel, and there are lots of hard decisions that women have to take in their careers. And in my case, just by being myself, I was able to work on the things that interested me and do it at the pace that made sense. And some of you may wonder what we've all done personally. I am married, and I do have 2 boys. I had my second baby when I was 45 years old.
okay? Now, in my case, that all fit in the way that I am and the way that my life course went, and it worked out fantastically. Everybody's path is different, and I think the most important thing is to just be true to who you are, follow your heart when you do your work. The rest is just work hard and learn.
And love what you do.
Love what you do.
I mean, I know that sounds a little corny, but really loving what you do, then the work becomes less hard to do because you're loving what you do.
Don't you just want to hug them?
Ditto.
Listen, I do want to thank Amy GALSNGEAR. You're awesome. You amazing. Ken, SVG, as always, thank you. All of you, thank you for coming here today. And ladies, thank you 1,000% because I've enjoyed you absolutely.
Thank you.